Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And check out that eye, that's exactly what we want to see. Woo, look at that panel, baby. And that, as they say, is that. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And join me today for my overview of the Lost Marvels Volume 1, Tower of Shadows. What exactly is collected in this book from Fantagraphics? So, let's go ahead and take a look at this together. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before I go any further, a big thank you to the folks at Fantagraphics for sending us a copy of this hardcover. So this hardcover has been out since the end of April, and it is available everywhere, direct market or the book market. This is the wonderful cover here by Steranko. And here we have the Marvel logo, the Lost Marvels, #1, Tower of Shadows, and the Fantagraphics logo. And then the back of the book right here, giving you a little bit of an explanation as to what the Tower of Shadows is. But more importantly, look at this lineup. Neal Adams, Jim Steranko, Barry Windsor-Smith, John Buscema, Wally Wood, Gene Colan, Mary Severin, Bernie Wrightson, Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, John Romita, Johnny Craig, Gerry Conway, and many more. So Fantagraphics has been publishing some Atlas-era Marvel books, and now we're going into the late 60s. So this is stuff that was actually printed by Marvel, not Atlas. None under the Atlas imprint. By the way, this does have art on board, and no dust jacket. And you can see, yes, right here, the glossy finish that there is to the actual panels, and they're a little bit embossed. So they kind of pop up a little bit. I like that. Then the Lost Marvels here. Tower of Shadows. So this is a volume 1, and it's interesting because we're going to get a couple more. As a matter of fact, 2 more volumes have been solicited. The Howard Chaykin volume 1, Dominic Fortune, and Monarch Starstalker and Phantom Eagle, and also a volume 3, The Savage Tales of the 1980s. So that's the stuff that happens after Conan the Barbarian. But those are coming out later this year. Now, to kind of give you an idea of how big the book is, here it is compared to the size of a Marvel Masterwork. So it is taller and longer, and we're going to look at the internal artwork here in a second, and comparing it to the size of an Omni. As a matter of fact, the first time I ever heard of Tower of Shadows was in the comment section of either this or Marvel, the Marvel Horror, Uncanny Omar Talk Pretty One Day, Marvel Horror overview that I did, because people were talking about, oh, maybe they should do the Chamber of Darkness and the Tower of Shadows for the next Marvel Horror Omni. And I was like, what is that? So I did a little bit of research, and here we are now, being published by Fantagraphics. So let's go ahead and crack this book open and talk about what exactly is collected in here, what's missing, and of course look at this gorgeous artwork and build of this book. Alright, let's go ahead and get this hardcover open. We have the zoom in on this panel right here, and same end sheets in the back. And you have this close-up right here of the guillotine from Steranko, Tower of Shadows, The Lost Marvels #1, Tower of Shadows. And that same image right there, the folks that help put the book together right here. The editor is Dr. Michael Dean, who actually did this amazing historical introduction here. Your table of contents, and giving the credits to who did the cover, and then, of course, breaking down the internal anthology series here. And a picture of the digger right there. And you'll notice something, the more you go through here, when you get to issue number 7, you only get 2 stories. You get 1 in issue 8 and none in issue 9. And then your special covers and then a little bio on the creators here. So first, let's talk about this amazing introduction. This is the editor, Dr. Michael Dean, who breaks down exactly what Tower of Shadows was and how the series was kind of an answer to DC's House of Mystery and House of Secrets that actually had gone and been canceled during this time, because this series started in 1969. So by now, we don't have the Atlas era. We have the Marvel era. Superheroes have been well established, but the other thing that had been well established was this little thing right here, which we'll look at here in a second. Actually, here, I'll show you. It's in the first cover. That little thing right there, the Comics Code. So the Comics Code had been established in the 50s. And unfortunately, because of the Seduction of the Innocent book and just cancellation of all the series from EC Comics, with the exception of Mad Magazine, or forcing it to become Mad Magazine, rather, it did away with all the horror comics, horror anthologies. You couldn't even have horror on the title. However, by the late 60s, they became a little less lenient, and, they started, by this point, you had, like, vampires. You could use vampires. You could use Frankenstein's monster, mummies. Like, you could actually use those words, and werewolves. So that's what this introduction does, and kind of gives you an idea of the talent that is in here. And of course, you saw the back with wonderful bio pictures here of all these characters. And by characters, I don't mean the actual characters. I mean, these guys had stories about them that were just like characters in the comic. I mean, look at the change here from Steranko from 70 to 71. This is the suit that we still see him wear to this day. Man, we are so blessed that we still have him and Barry Windsor-Smith and Roy Thomas that are still with us. But a lot of these legends are gone. Look at this picture of Wally Wood right there. And then there's a young Roy Thomas, and there's Barry Windsor-Smith. Again, just letting you know what issues they worked on, giving you a little bit of behind the scenes. I love this. This introduction is so thorough, talking about, like, when you had Johnny Craig working on the second story in the first issue, how the faces had to be redrawn by John Romita because they still had to keep that Marvel style. So collected in here are the 9 issues of Tower of Shadows, the stories that began in 1969. The series did go on. It did change. Eventually, it became Creatures on the Loose with issue number 10. And it wasn't until the last minute that they took out 2 of the stories that are supposed to be in here. Who knows? Maybe in another collection one day we'll get them. So this is very much like your EC Comics, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, or the Haunt of Fear, or even Creepy and Eerie magazine, or for that matter, House of Secrets and House of Mysteries. You have a kind of your, I guess, your Crypt Keeper, your Vault Keeper, your Old Witch, your Uncle Creepy and Cousin Eerie, or your Cain or Abel. This is Digger. And Digger introduces you to the story. So he is the host here and introducing you to the story about the character of Mary and Lou and how they inherited this. I'm just going to talk about this particular story in detail, just showcasing this beautiful artwork by Jim Steranko. So Lou married Marie here. And Marie lets him know that she just was into the marriage because of the money that she knew he would inherit from his uncle. So they go to this shadow house, that's what it's called. And it seems like just old garbage that his uncle collected through here. And she's like, I know he's got to have some kind of fortune in here. He's got to have something here. So they keep looking. They run into a library where there is a clock. And behind this clock, there's a secret passage. So again, look at this beautiful artwork with these colors by none other than Steranko. So behind this passageway, she does find a fortune. However, she also finds that they've been taken. Well, that was a. There we go. They've been taken back to the French Revolution, to the 18th century French Revolution, where there's a guillotine that's perhaps waiting for them, and there is Lou's uncle right there. So that's how that ends, right? So this is an anthology horror series that focuses on a few characters. This is the one by Johnny Craig right here, written by Stan Lee. And Johnny Craig during this time was trying to be a superhero artist. He comes from a long line of EC Comics and has done some phenomenal detective stuff and, of course, horror stuff. But he wasn't really into the superhero books. But this just faces were redrawn by none other than John Romita. This is Big John working with Stan Lee right here. And inking by Don Heck. So it's these type of stories. The letter pages are intact in here. And one of the things you're going to see is that eventually your host, by the 3rd issue, Digger's just gonna go away. I do love the fact that everybody draws him a little bit different. Like, that is completely different than the Digger we saw at the beginning here. This is a really interesting story about automation's gonna get your job. About these guys, these miners that are worried about these robots that are gonna end up replacing them. It's kind of funny how we still have that fear, right? Like, I remember when I was working in a factory, that's what the fear was, that these machines were going to end up replacing a lot of people, and they did. I mean, there was a reason for fear like that, and now it's going to become like AI, right, replacing people. But indeed, there is a robot. It does show up, and there's a twist with the story that you can find out by reading the book right here. So this is Len Wein and Gene Colan, but the inks are here by Joe Gaudioso. So it's a little bit different than the Gene Colan, but still that Gene Colan painted pencil artwork that we've come to love over the years. And here's your letter pages. Yeah, so by the time you get to the 3rd issue and 4th issue, there is no host. As a matter of fact, it is usually the writer or artist now that are doing the introductions to the stories. This is one by none other than Al Brodsky and Don Heck working on this story. I forgot to mention there was a Neal Adams story right here in the 2nd issue. So I skipped the minor issue. I didn't talk about this one. This is about a hippie named Denny. So maybe it is supposed to be Dennis O'Neil. And this monster, this creature that is coming after him. And again, beautiful artwork by none other than Neal Adams working on this. So unlike a lot of the horror anthologies, like especially Creepy and Eerie, or even House of Secrets and House of Horror, like that's where they would put new artists and writers. That's where they would get them to test their waters. They would say, hey, go and work on this book. So a lot of no-names, not all the time, but most of the time, were working on these particular anthologies. This was something different. This is where they got like their big artists and writers to come in and write this anthology series. Now, unfortunately, it's not complete. There are 2 stories that were pulled out at the last second, unfortunately. One comes from I think it's issue number 3, if I'm not mistaken. And it is a story. It's called The Terrible Old Man, so it's not in here. So that's why you see, when you go to the table of contents for issue number 3, there's only 2 stories in here. But it's called The Terrible Old Man, and it is based on, it's an adaptation of an H.P. Lovecraft story. It is by Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor-Smith. And one I was hoping to see. There's also the other story that's not collected in here from issue number 9. So when you get to issue number 9, oh, by the way, you do get to see some sword and sorcery stories in here. So it's not just horror. So you do get a little bit, it's actually called Swords of Swords and Sorcery by Stan Lee and Wally Wood. A legend, Wally Wood working here. Wally Wood, of course, drawing a lot of inspiration, and some people, depending on who you talk to or hear, swiping how Foster's work. But, I think inspiring art has always been a case with comic book artists and comic book writers. But by the time you get to, this is Sanctuary right here, issue number 9, they just showcase the cover right here by Bernie Wrightson. And it's Pickman's Model. It's another story that was written by Roy Thomas, and I believe it was penciled by Tom Palmer. It's not collected in here again. And at the very beginning, they tell you that it might be due to legal reasons why they're not included in here. It's a shame, though, because it would have been awesome to see it complete. Now, if you're wondering, wait, why does issue number 7 not have 3 stories? Why does issue number 8 only have 1 story? So if you go back to the table of contents, and it's all explained through here. So yeah, issue number 7 only has 7 stories, or 2 stories, not 7. It's issue number 7. And it's also redoing this Jack Kirby cover. So what they started doing, because the sales of the book just weren't doing great, they started reprinting a lot of the older stuff, a lot of the Atlas horror comics or monster comics from Jack Kirby. And that's why they didn't reprint them here. So that's the reason why. So they were reprints. And then you have a king size special right here that were reprints, 6 tales, so 6 reprints. And then of course issue number 9 had 2 reprints and 1 new story with the Pickman's Model that's unfortunately not in here, but a beautiful cover by Bernie Wrightson. And then your biographies are all the way back here, too. Now, there was another series, too. So this became Creatures on the Loose is what it became. And then there was another series that you probably will know because of Conan the Barbarian, and that is the Chamber of Darkness. So you had Tower of Shadows, and then the companion, Chamber of Darkness. Chamber of Darkness is where you saw the prototype for Conan the Barbarian by Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor-Smith. And that's collected in the original Marvel Omni. It's not collected in the Titan printing of it. And speaking of printing, let's talk about this book right here, the build of this. 176 pages, sewn binding, and printed in this thick matte paper stock. So most of the time, whenever you think of artwork that is being restored, I think a lot of people immediately think of the Marvel Masterworks, right? Because there's just this restoration that comes to those each and every panel, going like by the original or scanning the original art sometimes. For these, they're scanning the pages is what they're scanning, and then doing obviously there is restoration here being done, not to the level of what they do with the Marvel Masterworks, because the Marvel Masterworks also are printed in that glossy paper stock, whereas here they're using matte paper stock, and it is a thick matte paper stock, and again oversized. So even though you have a white frame around the art like so, it's still bigger art than what you find in the Marvel Masterworks, because this is again in standard size format. I suppose this is oversized format right here. So this again has been restored a different way than over here. This probably feels more like the original comics, right? Which some people really enjoy about collections like this. And again has, at least from what I can see, some of the house ads, and then of course the letter pages right here. So who knows, maybe one day we'll get the 2 issues or the 2 stories that were not collected in here in another collection. But we've got 2 more of these Lost Marvels, volumes 2 and 3, coming out later this year. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this hardcover, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltzcomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcon at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget, the CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count and build of this collection. In the comments down below, let me know if you remember this series, and if you didn't even know it was going to be collected by Fantagraphics. I know they've been doing a lot of their Atlas stuff, and we've got 2 more volumes coming later on. And what other collections, rare collections at that, would you like to see collected in this very format? If you have any questions, leave those down below. Smash that like button on the way out. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.